Hello, YouTube world. Welcome. I am Lucy Renee. I am going to tell some stories. I feel like life has thrown some curveballs at me through most of my life, and sometimes I wonder why. And I feel like maybe one of the reasons why is because so that I can share it with others and maybe give some ideas or pointers, things like that. So today's video specifically is about why I live in a school bus. One that's not even 100% completely converted. Like you can see, that's my insulation. That's because when COVID hit, the tiles that I've been purchasing a few at a time because they're expensive stopped or were no longer available. So I've just, I moved on to other things. But anyway, so I want to tell you why I converted a school bus and now I still live in it. I've lived in it for going on 2.5 years. Okay, let's get started with the story. Okay, so in I think about 2013, I found all my children were grown and doing well out of my house. I was completely single. I had 2 dogs. I had my RN. I'm a nurse, and so all of those things lent itself to quite a bit of freedom. And I have always had a wanderlust. I don't think that will ever go away. And there's reasons for that. That's for another day, another story. But so in 2014, the company I was working for, I visited with them, and they were in agreement that I could work for them in Colorado in the summer and in Arizona in the winter. And Arizona's at this point anyway, that's the one place I do kind of consider home. Although I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, and that's home also. But so I started thinking, well, how could I go about this? And back and forth, and I decided an RV seemed like a really great idea, right? Well, yes and no. It was a good idea, but I kind of jumped into it way too quickly. I didn't have anywhere near enough knowledge. I had somebody that I worked with that I thought was an honest person, and that person sold me for not very much anything, an RV or a Class A RV, and I thought it was because we were friends and coworkers, and that person just didn't want the responsibility of that vehicle anymore. And so I was super excited about this. I just could not wait. So I did make the purchase. I started kind of what I thought was going to be a renovation process. It was very outdated. I'd watched a couple of YouTube videos, so I thought, I'm just going to dive in and get to it, right? I can do this. So at that time I was in Arizona, and I decided one day when it was an absolute monsoon downpour, and those are incredible. If you've ever been in Arizona during a monsoon downpour, it's very impressive. So I thought, let's run over and see how it's handling the weather, because I had since done some more research, not enough yet, but done some more research, and I started to have a little bit of concern about whether it leaked or not. Okay, what do you think? Do you think it leaked? Oh yeah, it leaked. It literally was like a a waterfall inside that Class A. It literally was just pouring down onto the carpet, on the floor, everything. I've since learned there's ways to tell if an RV actually does leak or has had any significant leaking in the past. But at that point, I was devastated. I was so brokenhearted because I was so optimistic that this was going to be, such a grand adventure. And so I reached out to one of my sons that was living there at the time. I was like, help. And he was like, I have literally no idea how to help you. I don't know anything about this. I tried to not give up is kind of what I was considering that at the time. I don't anymore. I consider that giving that lemon right back where it came from. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up giving that back, and that did not lend itself to a good relationship after that point. But what was important to me at the time is I did not have to be responsible for that. I knew nothing about how to move forward in that situation. So, and right about that same time, I met someone. I had been single for years, and actually I didn't meet somebody. Somebody came into my life that I had been friends with years ago, and it kind of evolved into more than a friendship. So that is when my story started changing again. Okay, so let's move forward about not even quite 2 years. That situation completely disintegrated. There was a brief period where it looked like it might turn into a partnership of traveling together, and it did progress into a full-blown relationship and marriage. And as quickly as that happened, it also fell apart. But in that whole 2 years, I just was obsessed with YouTube and watching videos and people that traveled full time in their RVs. And in that search, I discovered what I now know to be skoolies. And that people take school buses and they turn them into their homes. And that, for some reason, just seemed like what I wanted to do. One of the reasons for that is because I had read and seen evidence to support the fact that buses are sturdier. If things fall on them, they handle that well. They're made of steel. I like the idea of being able to start with an empty canvas and create it into something that I truly, that was truly my own. Oh, sorry if that made noise. Trying, it would be mine. It would be my creation. It would be my design. And I could turn it into something that was, again, mine, my creation. So I just transitioned from, I just focused completely on how to buy a good school bus. What would be considered a good school bus for this project. And I just started watching how-to videos and how-to videos and how-to videos. And at this point, this is where my why started changing. And whereas when I originally started this, I was at a pretty good place, right? I just was naive. I didn't know enough yet. And but now, as I'm looking into this school bus, I found myself broken emotionally, and I was in a pretty dark place. I was humiliated. I was heartbroken. I felt so incredibly betrayed, forgotten, unlovable, all the things. I actually was having to live with one of my sons, which, call it pride, call it, whatever you want. But I had made it through nursing school as a single mom with 5 kids. I created a career. I had traveled the world literally with my nursing, and was a solid person and a contributing member of society. And that was not a place that I thought I would ever end up. But because of circumstances that I will spare you, maybe for another time, that's where I ended up. I ended up having to live with one of my sons, and but I never let go of this dream of traveling full time. So, and the school bus thing. And one of the reasons at this point I just couldn't let go of it is because I needed a project. I needed something that I could dive 100% into. I didn't even realize at the time how much I needed it. And I didn't even realize while I was doing the conversion how much it really was helping me and actually healing me. Even though it did make me bleed and cry sometimes. Okay, now it is 2018. I have worked and saved and worked and saved. I had felt like I had researched as much as and learned as much as I was going to learn without somebody, leading me and guiding me. And I was ready to buy buy a bus. And so I found one. I felt good about it, and I bought it. And let me tell you, for the rest of my life, I will not forget what that felt like to get in this bus and drive away. At that time, it looked exactly like a school bus. All the seats were in it, and, it was a school bus. Had I ever drove one before? Nope. So two of my sons took me to pick up the bus, and when we were getting ready to drive off, one of them said, "Do you want me to ride with you?" And I was like, "No, that is a really bad idea. I don't want my son or any of my children. I don't want anybody in the bus with me the first time I drive it." And so I pulled out of the gentleman's house or property that I purchased it from, and I headed for the highway, and I was hysterically laughing. I know now, looking back, it it was a lot. Beginning of healing was beginning, and a lot was falling off of my heart. A lot of weight was coming off my shoulders. I didn't realize it yet. I just thought I was incredibly excited and intensely fearful of what I was getting myself into. But obviously it worked out. I had a good time. It's still one of my favorite things to do is to drive the bus. His name's Gusto, by the way. And so I I found a little home, very, very humble little home in a less than perfect neighborhood that I was able to park the bus in that driveway, and the garage became my shop, and the journey began. And I will say, although I was a little bit fearful that the bus would get vandalized or broken into in this neighborhood, it turned out to be it lent itself to an incredible relationship with one of my now best friends. I don't get to see her enough now because I don't live there anymore, but she was my neighbor, and she was a single woman also, and she just got so much of what I was going through and understood. She was and is a dear friend. And so, okay, March 2018, here we go. If you ever ask people that have turned a skoolie or a school bus into their home or a camper or all that, it truly is, it's going to take you 2 to 3 times as long as you thought, and it's going to cost you 2 to 3 times as much. I worked to make the money, and then I took the money to buy a tool or supplies or materials. I watched videos every single step of the way. I will tell you, there was people that would say, "Oh yeah, I'll help," but truthfully, when it came down to it, no, that didn't happen. So it depends on what, if this is something that you really want to do. I honestly would encourage you to try to solicit as much real commitment and real help that you can get, because I had basically zero, except for one weekend to clean and seal and put a coating on top of on the bus to paint the, elastomer so it doesn't leak, so it's white and reflects heat, all those things. So I did have somebody help with that, and I had my neighbor. She helped any chance that she could, but for all intents purposes, the majority of it I did myself. Now, let me tell you, if I had to do it all over again, I would completely do it in a different way. The bus would look completely different. I have learned so much. I know so much different, so many other things now that I didn't know then. But for one single 55-year-old at the time woman who was brokenhearted, broken spirit, all of that, and had never literally even purchased or used a drill. I didn't even know how to use a drill. So, and I was doing it from paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, I'm still pretty proud of what I was able to do. Okay, so there are a lot more details about doing the bus that I could make another 10 videos on probably. But so that kind of leads me, well, so I got the bus livable, ready to go, and I drove out of that little humble driveway in August of 2019. So took me a little over a year to get it livable. Things weren't completely done, but I could live just fine in it. I've always been comfortable in the bus. I've always been warm enough, not always cool enough. A bus in 105-degree weather is no bueno. Yeah, don't do that. But so I drove away and I went to a campground for the very first time, and oh my goodness, I can't even explain to you the sense of accomplishment, the sense of confidence that I regained as a capable, worthy woman. So after that, then I took an assignment in Nebraska. I went to a little town I'd never even heard of, and what a blessing. Such a great little hospital to work at. Met some great people, still friends with, and survived a literal blizzard while living in Gusto. That did not intend to do that. Never intended to do that. And yet I insulated the crap out of the bus and just used a couple of little electric heaters because I was plugged in. And it was fine. It was incredible. What an adventure. And it's a pretty cool video to see and a pretty cool story to tell and a fantastic memory. A fantastic memory. Okay, so then after Nebraska, I went and spent about a month back in Kansas City, parked in my sister's driveway, and awesome. I was able to stay at my sister and brother-in-law's house and still have my bed and have my little home with me, and that was super nice. I went from there. I actually went all the way to Tucson, Arizona, thinking I was, going to go reconnect with some family that I hadn't had opportunity to get to know anywhere near as well as I wanted to, and enjoy Arizona in the winter. And then at this point, it is January 2020, and we all know what happened then. So, hello, pandemic. I was an ICU nurse, and I spent what felt like 50 years, but about a year and a half as an ICU nurse during the COVID pandemic. And my bus was actually one of the things that kept me safe, kept me sane, because I could look around every inch of my living space and maintain some confidence, maintain some security, comfort. So yeah, I had considered giving up the bus because it's hard to find places that will let me park it. It's completely 100% in running mechanical order, but it's still a school bus, and until I can afford, like a $10,000 paint job, really nice paint job on it, it's not accepted in RV parks. And so most of the time I stay at fairgrounds. They are good, and or campgrounds, but campgrounds are really expensive. So and you can only stay there for 2 weeks at a time, most campgrounds. So that is basically my why I did it, and why I'm still doing it. And now I'm doing it because this is what I do, for one thing. It's just where I live, for one thing. I'm just about to a place now. I'm with a company now that we're negotiating being 100% remote. And while I might actually even downsize into a van, I'm not sure. I still will not ever get rid of, well, I shouldn't say never, but I don't have any intentions of selling Gusto at this point. A couple of times I thought about it, and it is evidence for me and proof to me that I can be successful, and I can maintain my confidence even when life throws curveballs. So right now I am in California. I've needed to spend some time around my grandchildren and my daughter, and yeah, no secret how expensive it is to live in California. So living in the bus lets me keep more money in my pocket instead of giving it away. So that's something that I will probably continue to do for quite a bit longer. And that's it. I have more plans. I could go on, but that's my why. That is my why. So hopefully you can draw some inspiration and some, if nothing else, a little bit of understanding why this crazy 57-year-old single woman lives in a school bus. Thanks for watching, guys.